Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachanam pangam nangyate kirim yatkripatamahamं vande Shri Gurudinataranam Paramanandam Madhavam Namo Vishwadaya Krishnasthaya Bhutale Srimati Ramaputta Swami Namine Namo Vishwadaya Krishnasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunavadi Paschachadeshatarani. So Hare Krishna once again. Thank you so much for joining. So I want to start off by giving you a little bit of overview of what is coming up. So in the Bhagavad Gita, 3 modules, we kind of followed a pattern in which I would do the pre-recorded lectures, or I would do the recording of the lecture ahead of the time, and then the class participants would listen to the lecture. I would give a summation, and there would be Q&A and group discussions. In the Nectar Devotion, we're doing it a little bit differently, just because the subject matter is, or the way the subject matter is organized, it requires us to approach it a little differently. So let me actually share my screen. So this is essentially the division of the 19 chapters of the Nectar of Devotion that are part of our Bhakti Shastri. And right now we are doing the introduction, and hopefully we'll do chapter 1. So the first 6 chapters are actually very philosophically dense. They provide the shastric evidence and basis for bhakti, and little difficult to grasp, because we generally treat bhakti as more from an emotional perspective, and this is establishing science to emotions. So the first 6 chapters I will be speaking on, lecturing within the class and Q&A. After that, from chapter 7 to 19 will be done by the respective groups. So these are mostly details. The 64 angas of bhakti, the offenses, the things that are conducive to hearing and remembering. So if you look at the chapters, they're mostly giving points 1, 2, 3, 4, and it kind of reads like an instruction manual for a practicing devotee. So there is not much, there is not a very strong, so all the philosophy has been condensed in the first 6 chapters. Really, the first 5 chapters. The 6th chapter I want to do because it establishes an overarching context for the remaining until chapter 16. But after that, it is just it kind of reads like a manual. Do this, do this, do this, don't do this. Advantages of doing this is there. As practicing devotees, very, very important for us to understand it. So this is where, so there will not be any pre-recorded lectures here. I will not be lecturing other than Q&A. This will be done entirely through group presentations. On an average, I'm thinking two per class. Some chapters are larger than other chapters. Some chapters are like really, really small. We could do three of them. Some of them that are larger. I don't think there's one that's large enough to take the entire 1 hour. So we'll do either two or three, right? So that's the plan. I'll work with Rupa Raghunath to distribute the chapters amongst the groups. And the group presentations will essentially start from chapter 7, which I'm guessing is either 3 to 4 weeks away from now, depending how quickly we go through the first 6 chapters. Okay, so that's the overview of how we are going to approach the book in the course. Any questions?
Prabhuji, will there be a pre-recorded recordings for the first 6 chapters?
No, because the lectures that I'm giving, they will basically get uploaded into the page.
Okay.
But they are stand-in for the pre-recordings.
Got it, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Okay. So if there are no questions, let me resume the discussion. So we were doing the characteristics of pure devotional service, and maybe I'll quickly go through it just so that there is continuity also. So this we said is the Paribhasha Sutra Nibilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadina Vratam Anukulena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhakti Rottamam. Right, and then so there are essentially 5 characteristics of bhakti. The first 3, Krishna, Anushilanam, and Anukulanam, come in the characteristic of Sarup Lakshan. They're necessary conditions. If any one of them is missing, then the activity is not bhakti. And the last 2 are the Tathas Lakshan, or refining qualities. And by their presence, bhakti becomes Shuddha Bhakti. If any one of them are absent, it is Mishra Bhakti. Right. So we first talked about how bhakti is only towards Krishna. And when we say Krishna, we talk about Krishna Swayam Bhagwan, his expansion like Narayan and Vishnu, his devotees, his paraphernalia, his holy dham. And then we also said that items 2 to 5 are only considered to be relevant when the person approaches it understanding that they are in relation to Krishna. And if somebody is worshipping Krishna's flute, so if a person who approaches it simply looking at it as a flute is not executing bhakti. But if one is worshipping the flute, understanding that this is Krishna's paraphernalia, that is bhakti, right? So, so this is understanding that the target is Krishna. And this is where we spend some time that Anushilanam are activities that are either performed directly for Krishna or related to Krishna. And then how the endeavor is an action in the context of an emotion. The action can either invoke an emotion or express an emotion. And similarly, an emotion is in the context of a relationship or the side effect of another emotion. And then we looked at some example, laughing, and then we looked at it in the context of Krishna, and that the top box points towards sadhana bhakti, cheshta rupa, and it could either invoke bhakti, which is sadhana, or it could be an expression of bhakti, which is Bhava Bhakti. Right, and then we said how sadhana bhakti is by body, mind, and words, and it is by do's and don'ts. And this is a more technical summation. So this is where we had stopped at summarizing Anushilanam or devotional service. So what is the summary? What is the point that Rupa Goswami is trying to make? So those activities that are either inspired by a desire to generate bhakti or that are performed as a result of existing bhakti is devotional service. So it covers our situation that while we do not have a lot of natural attraction for Krishna, we have a desire to develop that attraction. So we perform the Vaidhi Bhakti. We perform the do's and don'ts. We follow the rules and regulations, which essentially is covered from chapter 7 to 16, right? All the aspects of Vaidhi Bhakti. That should do this, should offer fresh flowers, etc. So these are all external activities, but they come in the category of bhakti because they're executed with a desire to generate bhakti. And then there are the mature devotees who may not be so much concerned about rules and regulation, but whose activities are an expression of bhakti that is already mature in them, right? So when we perform sadhana bhakti, then by do's and don'ts, we follow the do's and don't follow the don'ts. So both of them are equally important. One cannot say that only active engagement is bhakti. But when devotees avoid gambling or meat eating, that is also bhakti, because it is for the sake of generating love for Krishna. Okay. So Rupa Goswami, he uses the prefix anu. Anu literally means that, in this context, it means that which follows. So for practicing devotees, it means that following the examples of the predecessor acharyas. Right? So one executes bhakti as is given by the guru and the parampara. Right? This is the ascending connection to Krishna. So this excludes those who perform bhakti whimsically. Like if somebody says, I feel that this is how bhakti should be. And you will meet people like that who will have that conception, right? That's not bhakti, because there is no anushilanam. And anushilanam, the word anu, so anushilanam is a required characteristic. If anushilanam is missing, it's not bhakti. Within anushilanam, anu means that it is following the examples and instructions of the predecessor acharyas, which means according to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. If one is not doing that, it is not Anushilanam, it is not Bhakti. Right? So Rupa Goswami's placement that Shilanam cannot connect to Krishna without Anu, without disciplic succession. That is why there is so much focus in devotees following a Guru. So now if somebody would ask you that if I'm not connected to an parampara, can I still be performing bhakti? The answer is no, because Anushilanam is missing. So what connects us to Krishna? Anu, the parampara between us and Krishna. Now, Anu also means that one can only perform bhakti if Krishna empowers one to perform bhakti. So this is the mercy aspect of it. Okay, because there are so many people who may have the desire to perform bhakti. But bhakti is a gift. We cannot demand it. So that is the descending aspect of Anu, that it follows the mercy or empowerment of Krishna. And then Srila Prabhupada gives a third aspect of Anu, wherein he says that any activities done in devotional service of Krishna consciousness are directly under the control of the spiritual energy. So it's almost like a subcategory of two. If it is being empowered by Krishna, then it is under his spiritual energy. Okay, so we have done the two Swarup Lakshans. We have done Krishna and Anushilanam. Now we come to the first Tathast Lakshan, Anukulena. Anukulena means favorable intention. Right? Now, understanding these concepts are, I cannot emphasize enough, very important, because it helps clarify in our mind. When we are executing bhakti, how can we improve our bhakti? It clarifies when we have discussions with others or preaching with others. Right? So if you have a crystal clear understanding of this, then at least philosophically we will be well situated. So Anukulena means that devotional service must be intended to please Krishna. Now, one may ask that in Anushilanam, that point was already made, that Anu in Anushilanam meant that empowered by Krishna, meant that connected to Krishna, meant that activities that result in invoking remembrance of Krishna. So one might say it's already covered in Anushilanam. Why does Rupa Goswami use another word in the verse for seemingly redundant word? So this refers to the alignment of intent and impact. So intent is that what is the desire behind which we are executing an activity. Impact is what is the result of executing that activity. Right? So somebody may have an like a mother may have an intent to help the child, and with that intent she chastises the child. So the impact may be that the mother is scolding the child, but the intent is that she wants to help the child. Now, typically intent and impact are aligned, but not always. Rupa Goswami uses the analogy of the warrior and his weapons, and Prabhupada uses this analogy in two different ways. So the analogy that Rupa Goswami uses is that when the king says that summon the warrior, then the warrior will appear with him along with the weapons. The king will not say that summon the warrior along with the weapons, because the weapons is an intrinsic part of the warrior's identity. However, if the king says feed the warrior, then the understanding is that only the warrior will be given food. The weapons will not be given food. So we see that the impact is different. In one case, the king says summon the warrior, it includes the weapons. In the second case, the king says feed the warrior, the weapons are not included. And so this is where the intent and impact may or may not align. Now, practical example is when the asuras fight with Krishna or the devas seek his protection, Krishna is pleased. Right? So that is the impact. So it is an activity that is done to please Krishna, or an activity that is resulting in Krishna's pleasure. So it comes in the category of Anushilana. Right? So when we see when Varadev was fighting with Hiranyaksh, he was very happy because he was enjoying the battle. At some point, the Brahma says that you have enjoyed enough now, please kill him. Right? But Varadev was having a good time fighting with Hiranyaksh. So the activity was pleasing to Krishna. Comes in the category of Anushilanam. But Hiranyaksh was not doing it with a desire to please Krishna. Right? So I'm sorry, I think I mentioned that Anukulna was Tathas. It's not Tathas. It's a primary character. It's a Swarup Lakshan. I saw this point and wanted to clarify that because it was not done with a desire to please Krishna, it is not bhakti. Right? So regardless of what the impact is, the intent should be what should be there. Right? So Agyat Sukriti is like one unknowingly performs activities that please Krishna. One unknowingly gives obeisances or fasts on Ekadashi. So even though the impact is pleasing to Krishna, the intent is not to please Krishna. Right? So it is not, it may result in bhakti if there is mercy of devotees, but it is not bhakti. So bhakti implies that intent and impact are aligned to please Krishna. We'll see there is some exception here, but for the most part, anukulena means that the intent and impact is there to please Krishna, which is why Rupa Goswami, he emphasizes Anushilanam. So Anushilanam is impact, which is activities that are favorable to Krishna, and Anukulena, that they are performed with the intention of pleasing Krishna. Now, this is where I mentioned there are some exceptions, which generally happen in very, very advanced devotees, that the intent and impact may not align, but it is still bhakti. Right? So, so Yashoda, when she is chastising Krishna, Krishna is getting angry. But Yashoda's intent is to, and she looks at Krishna as her son, is to take care of her son. Right? So Anukulena, the intent is positive, the impact may not be positive. Right? Krishna may feel angry about it. So we have three situations of positive, negative, and neutral intent, and three situations of positive, negative, and neutral impact. Right? And let's see which ones are bhakti and which ones are not. So intent, as I mentioned, is anukulena, and impact is anushilana. So when the intent is positive and impact is positive, right? So it is anukulena, anushilana, then it is bhakti. So this is how typical devotees execute bhakti. They execute it with a desire to please Krishna, and Krishna is pleased by the execution of those activities. Devotees offer arti. So the reason they offer arti is to please the Lord, and the Lord is pleased when the arti is offered. So both intent and impact are aligned. Now, negative intent and negative impact. This is the action of typical non-devotees. Right? So asuras, their desire is to displease Krishna by either ignoring his instruction, going against his will, and the impact is also negative. Right? So this is typically the action of non-devotees. And neutral intent and neutral impact is that the person does not have anything to do with Krishna, and Krishna does not have anything to do with the person. Right? So these are people who are just karmis. They may not be offending Krishna, but they have no desire to please Krishna. Right? So they're indifferent to Krishna, and Krishna is indifferent to them. Now, this situation in which the intent is positive, but the impact is negative, is bhakti of very advanced devotees. Right? Because, and even then the impact is so-called negative because it's actually pleasing to Krishna. So that's why we take it with a little bit of, take this with a little bit of salt, that typically if the intent is positive uh, and the impact is negative, it means there may be offenses, but very rare cases, very, very advanced devotees where Krishna appears to be negatively impacted. I gave the example of Yashoda binding Krishna. Krishna is angry, right? But it's in the category of bhakti. Then these two positive and negative intent but neutral intent impact is a theoretical. It's not possible because Krishna always reciprocates. When anybody approaches Krishna with positive intent, Krishna reciprocates positively with a negative impact. So Krishna does not stay neutral when the devotee is approaching him, or even when somebody is approaching him with envy. Right? Krishna is envious to those who appear envy yathama prapadyante, right? That now this category of negative intent but positive impact, right? So this is not bhakti, right? So this was the example I was giving, that the asuras offer combat to Krishna. Krishna is happy, he likes combat, but they have no desire to please Krishna. Right? So it is not anukulena. It may be anushilanam, but not anukulena. It is not bhakti. Right? Then neutral intent and positive impact. So this Rupa Goswami gives the example of like the devas, they approach Krishna for protection. So Krishna is happy that they have surrendered to him, but they are not approaching Krishna with the desire to please Krishna. Now, they are not approaching Krishna with the desire to displease him, right? They're glorifying him, etc. But their main motivation is that protect me. These asuras are attacking, we are losing, please protect me. Or so-called, like Prabhupada would say, people who treat Krishna as an order supplier. That um, uh, give me this, give me that. And then they say, well, we're going to Krishna. But it's not bhakti because while the Krishna may be happy, he may even reciprocate, but the intent is lacking. And so it does not come with the category of bhakti. Similarly, agyat sukriti, right? One unknowingly performs activities that are pleasing to Krishna. It is not bhakti, though it may result in bhakti, right? And then this is the example of neutral intent but negative impact, which is somebody unknowingly making offenses. If somebody does not know and speaks speaks loudly in front of the deities. Sometimes you go to a temple and you'll see people turning the back to the deities and taking selfies. So these are they don't have a desire to, they have a neutral intent, no desire to please or displease Krishna, but they're making offenses, right? Agyat duskriti, it's called, right? You know that unknowingly you're doing offenses. So this is also not in the category of bhakti. So we see that two situations. One is positive intent and positive impact. Anukulena, anushilena is the typical bhakti, and the second I said is more for advanced devotees. But for the purpose of practicing devotees, this is what bhakti is. That anukulena anushilena. And that is the bhakti that Rupa Goswami is talking about in this. So the second category, like I said, it's qualified when one looks upon the service to Krishna as higher than serving Krishna. Like Mother Yashoda thinks that more important for Krishna to eat than for Krishna to play. Right. So that is an example of bhakti of advanced devotees. Okay, so we did the three Swarup Lakshan. Krishna, Anushilanam and Anukulana has to be directed towards Krishna, positive impact, positive intent. Now let's look at the Tathas Lakshanam, which are two, Anibhilashita, Shunyam. Right? So we have said so far that bhakti is performed with favorable activities and favorable intention. Right? But let's assume that somebody is performing Anukulena, Anushilanam, Krishna, but still has desires for material. So it is still in the category of bhakti because the first three, the necessary conditions are being met. But it comes in the category of Kama Mishra Bhakti. So it is not Shuddha Bhakti. So essentially, Anukulena, which is the motivation, is further refined. And here we see that how Rupa Goswami very, very carefully he's selecting words. Every word is really a set of verses to define bhakti exactly, not too much, not too less. So Abhilasha means desires. Abhilasha Shunyam means no desires. So when Rupa Goswami says Abhilasha Shunyam, or if he would say, then it would mean that one has to be without desires. So then one may say that, but I have desires. I have desires to serve Krishna. I have desires to make spiritual advancement. So Rupa Goswami says, yes, let me modify it and then say that anabhilashita shunyam. So, which means that no desire other than to serve Krishna. Right? So now he is including desires to serve Krishna in the category of bhakti. So these will not make the bhakti as kami bhakti. Like sometimes people say, like this devotee has such strong ambitions to build a temple, distribute so many books, but these are all desires to serve Krishna. They're different from a person who has a desire to build a big house and to have a big name, because those are material desires. Now, further questions. So, what about basic desires of self-preservation? Right. So, if the verse was to say that any desire other than to serve Krishna contaminates bhakti, what happens to a situation where a devotee is walking down the road and a snake is coming? Then will the devotee say that, oh, I should simply walk and let the snake bite me, because otherwise I have desires other than to serve Krishna? What about transient desires? That eating, the eating could be earning prasad, but like wearing warm clothes in winter, the desire to stay warm. So then Rupa Goswami, he further modifies it and says Anabhilashita Shunyam. So if you notice that he converts it from desire to motivation. So motivation is more in the category of refining intention. That a devotee will keep himself warm, or like devotees will often, they'll say that instead of saying I'm going to sleep, they will say I'm going to rest my body. Right? And why do they say that? Because sleeping is for my pleasure, resting my body is so that it can be refreshed and be ready for Krishna's service. Right? So while there is a desire to sleep, the motivation is different. The motivation of the devotee to go to sleep is that my body gets rested and then I get up in the morning and I'm ready to sleep. Right? So the Anabhilashita Shunyam is essentially saying that no motivation other than to serve Krishna. It may result in different desires, But in all cases, the motivation is serve Krishna. As long as that motivation is there, it is Shuddha Bhakti. If that motivation is contaminated, then it becomes Mishra Bhakti. If one is motivated with a desire to get wealth and is therefore serving Krishna, it is Mishra Bhakti. But if one is motivated to get wealth to serve devotees, then it is still in the category of Shuddha Bhakti. The second is Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. Right? Devotional service is not covered by philosophical or fruitive pleasures. So, Anavritam really means it's not obstructed by it. Right? The literal meaning of Bhakti is not obstructed. So, it does not mean that devotees who pursue knowledge or who perform activities in the category of karma kanda, they are not devotees, or they are not pure devotees. But anavritam means that those activities do not overshadow the pursuance of bhakti. On the contrary, these activities actually assist bhakti. So when devotees pursue knowledge, they pursue knowledge like we are doing Bhakti Shastri. The idea is that by this we get a better understanding, so that our preaching activities get better, our philosophical understanding of Prabhupada's books get better. So the pursuit of knowledge does not cover the execution of bhakti. And so, what would be a case where it would cover? When somebody says that you cannot chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra unless you have knowledge of the Vedas, or you cannot perform deity worship unless you know these 26 mantras to be chanted, right? So they're all valid parts of the Vedas and they're there to help, but one cannot make them overshadow bhakti. Or one may say that karma kanda activities are a prerequisite for devotional activities. Right? One may say that you have to have so much wealth to do bhakti, or you may have to perform mundan or whatever. There are so many karma kanda activities before you can do bhakti. As long as one sees them as assisting, they're okay, but they should not cover bhakti. Okay? So essentially, karma or gyan that nourishes bhakti is, so bhakti in any of the three stages, sambandha, vidya, prayojan, is not in this category. Right? So this is an important understanding, what covers bhakti and what does not cover bhakti. So one might say that this verse is Rupa Goswami's verse, and he's a great personality, but still, it's just his verse. So Rupa Goswami says no. This verse is actually a restating of a verse by Narad Muni. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tat pratavena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchyate. That bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord. The Supreme Personality of God is the master of all senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is free from all material designation, and one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. And and this verse of Rupa Goswami is quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we can see how the two verses are actually equivalent, right? So Bhaktir Uchyate and Bhaktir Uttamam, right? They're both pointing, it means that both the verses are talking about the same thing. Right? Narad Muni says that what I'm defining is Bhakti Uchyate. And Rupa Goswami says what I'm defining is Bhakti Uttamam, saying the same thing. So Sarvopadhi Vinirmuktam. Let free from all desires except the desire to render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? So what does this mean? anabhilashita shunyam. That no desires other than the service of Krishna. Tat pratvena. For the sole, by the sole purpose of saving the Supreme Lord, anukulena. Right? So purpose is pointing to intent. Then nirmalam, uncontaminated by the effects of speculative philosophical research or fruitive activities. So this is Srila Prabhupada's word-to-word translation of the verse. And then Rupa Goswami says Jnana Karmadi Anavritam, which is same thing, not covered by knowledge, etc. And Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam, by purified senses freed from all designations. And this is Krishnanu Shilan, that cultivation or service in relation to Krishna. Right? So we see that the 5 characteristics of bhakti that Rupa Goswami brings forth in this verse exactly map to the 5 characteristics that Narad Muni speaks in the Narad Pancharatra, essentially establishing the Vedic correspondence to the verse. This is not a verse composed by Rupa Goswami, but rather he has taken the verse spoken by Narad Muni, and acharyas, they do that. They put it in a way that can be more easily understood. So just a quick review, that pure devotional service is activity intended to please Krishna without ulterior motive and not covered by philosophical or fruitive pursuits. This is Prabhupada's translation of this, which gives us the definition of pure devotional service. So we see that Rupa Goswami's definition is perfect. Each word is precise, and it does not cover less, does not cover more. And it, if one understands this, one understands what is devotional service, what is pure devotional service, what is mixed devotional service, and what is not devotional service, right? And it applies to all stages. It applies to those who are practicing devotees like us. It also applies to devotees who are perfected. So this is just establishing the Sanskrit with the English. Without ulterior motives, anabhilashita shunyam, not covered by philosophical or fruitive pursuit, jnana karmadi anavratam, intended to please anukulena Krishna, and anushilanam is activity, engagement, pure devotional services, bhaktir uttama. Okay. So what have we covered so far? We did the dedication to the 6 Goswamis. In the preface, we looked at Rupa Goswami's position. We looked at the history of Nectar of Devotion, the 6 purposes. We analyzed the title of the book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In the introduction, we did the praise for auspiciousness. We did the description of the book's content, and we described pure devotional service. And so this is essentially the end of the introduction. So at this point, I am actually going to start with or let me do this. Let me pause and see if we have questions here. I may not be able to start chapter 1, but this is an important part of the book. So let me see if there are any questions that or discussion that the devotees would like to have. Please go ahead, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. It is, I read that nectar of devotion is specially meant only for people who are practicing Krishna consciousness. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Sure, sure.
Hare
Akhila Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my Prabhu, with where you were mentioning.
Can you speak a little louder, Mataji? I can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now, Prabhu?
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. So where you were mentioning about the verse of Narada Pancharatra and Rupa Goswami's verse, like I was just like, where there is like literally direct um uh how to say, these words are literally put in just a different word this side, like against, but that also means exactly the same. May I just try to like, I would just like to understand then why was this verse given instead of it could have been picked from Narada Pantraja, where it's exactly like literally the same, or is there something like, made, is there something which is made easier, or to put it in a simpler words or something like that?
That is my understanding that why did Rupa Goswami have the need to paraphrase Narad Pancharatra? Because as an acharya, his intention was to make sure that the message is clearly conveyed. The same reason why Srila Prabhupada writes purports, and many times in the translation he gives expanded meanings of verses. Um, not to say that, I mean, the statement is not that Krishna is not doing a good enough job to explain to you, so let me explain to you. The statement is that you're not qualified enough to understand what Krishna is speaking, so let me help you understand. So same mood of Rupa Goswami.
Um, okay. No, because me where you had mentioned like literally matching against this, so I was just trying to understand, just for example, that tat pravartatena against like that. So is it like this, like if at all it's like exact word which is like used another word against that? I was just trying to like think like, then why that was, because if exactly all these five is what is just mentioned against these five. Am I making sense, Prabhu, when I'm asking?
I thought I understood your question and answered it. So my understanding of your question is that if what Rupa Goswami is saying is exactly the same as what Narad Muni is saying, what is the reason for Rupa Goswami restating the verse? Is that your question?
What is the reason for Rupa Goswami actually picking different words uh, instead of just using the same words? Because like where we are exactly matching this against that, and this also means that, and that also means that. Is there like is there something that um how to say, is Rupa Goswami using like a simpler word or simpler understanding for us,
Yes,
where I'm
I
failing to
think
understand that?
I think I understood your question and I thought I answered it, but let me do it again. So the point I've made is that uh, um, the acharyas in their role, they do that. They'll take some shastric verse and they may paraphrase it with the intention of clarity. Sometimes the verses are spoken in context, so they will absorb the context. Sometimes the verses are difficult to understand. So when Rupa Goswami paraphrases that verse in Anabhilashata Shunyam, he does it for the sake of clarity. That when you analyze the verse, then you get an exact definition of bhakti. Now he could have used Sarupadi Vinir Muktam and come to the same conclusion, but that is his prerogative. He's an acharya for that reason. That is his discretion, and we follow his discretion.
Okay, Prabhu. And the second question is the Agyata Sukriti, right? So is it that because of that I'm having like like does my, even though it is not considered as bhakti, but does that does that give me spiritual credits that will actually move me into bhakti?
So it will not give you spiritual credits because it's not in the category of bhakti. but it could attract the mercy of a devotee. Right. So Agyat Sukriti in Madhuri Kadamni, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he states this point that why do some people get bhakti and some people do not? And one reason he says is by the performance of Agyat Sukriti, that one may accidentally perform bhakti, and that attracts the mercy of devotees. So somebody takes a book just to get a person off the back. Somebody is saying, take this Bhagavad Gita, take the Bhagavad Gita, and the person, this person is pestering me, or he might be just charitable, takes the book, right? Agyat Sukriti is there. In the Padma Puran, the whole Ekadashi is explained as Agyat Sukriti. People accidentally following Ekadashi and then getting mercy. So while the impact is positive, the intent is neutral. Right? So Anukulena is missing, so it is not bhakti, but it could be bhakti anumukhi. It could be something that could result in bhakti.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Divya, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dhanvat Pranam. My question, I think, is something you just answered on, but I will still put out. On practical terms, we go out and like do service at the temple and all, but then we plan our timings accordingly that like maybe we'll get Mahaprasad, we'll get Bhoga, and we want to go at that particular time. So is it positive intent with negative impact is what we are getting into, or
No. It's all positive. That's positive intent with positive impact. So that's the distinction between motivation and desire. So you may desire that I may get some. Sometimes you prasadam is a different category because even honoring prasadam is bhakti. It's an anga of bhakti, right? So you cannot peel it away. Sometimes you'll say, I'll go to the temple because my friend is coming. Maybe I'll get some time to chat with a friend. So you go to the temple, but your primary motivation is what? To do some
service?
Right? So you may have other desires,
Okay.
but the intent is positive. The motivation is positive. So it comes to the category of bhakti. So both anukulena and anushilana, both are aligning to one another.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Okay. Rup Raghunath Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dhanvat Pranam. Prabhuji, just wanted to understand a little bit about the relationship between Rupa Goswami and the Sanatan Goswami. So we know that Sanatan Goswami is the elder brother, but at the same time, Rupa Goswami is considered as the chief of the 6 Goswamis. And on the contrary, Rupa Goswami considers Sanatan Goswami as his spiritual master. So just trying to understand the relationship and our understanding that we are all Rupa Nugas, and Rupa Goswami is sort of in his humble mood, considering himself disciple of Sanatan Goswami. So if you can provide a little bit more explanation on that.
So Srila Prabhupada explains that because Rupa Goswami is the Abhideya Acharya, so he's helping us in the practical aspects of devotional service, how to execute bhakti. And Sanatan Goswami, because of his advancement, because of his mood, he's more absorbed in bhakti himself. Rupa Goswami wrote all these books that we follow, practical tips to execute bhakti. So we call ourselves Rupa Nuga. All the devotees are on the same platform. Sometimes we get into this mental thing of Rupa is higher than Sanatan, and whatever Raghunath Das Goswami and Gopal Bhatt, he just read Bhagavatam, he didn't do much. But each one of them has a different mood by which they're exemplifying. They all came for our benefit. They were all like, and the 6 Goswamis are all pure devotees. They descended from the spiritual world for our benefit. So they were exemplifying different modes. So I propose a Rupa Nugas because he gives us instructions on, especially for sadhakas, NoD, NOI. These are especially books for sadhakas. So that's why we follow Rupa Nukas.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Neeraj Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dharma Pranam. Prabhuji, my question is not related to today's class, but it is related to the previous class, if I have the permission to ask. So, Prabhuji, there was a line which was saying that devotees are the greatest or great, and my tiny mind was thinking that when we say devotees are the great, and I am a devotee or a practicing devotee for that matter, does it not give the rise to the aham or the
It's not give right to aham. It's a good question. General mood is that so you're referring to the analogy that Rupa Goswami gives of sharks. He compares the devotees to sharks,
yes, Prabhuji.
and then he says that the sharks are the kings of the ocean, right? And
Yes.
so when statements about the greatness of devotees are made, they're actually a reflection of greatness of Krishna, right? Not so much for the devotees. And you can see that when he describes the characteristics of the sharks, it is more so that the devotees are great because they focus on the philosophy that takes them close to Krishna. They avoid the rivers of the other philosophies, and they avoid the land of mental speculation. So the greatness is more, it's just like Prabhupada would say that the servant of a great master automatically becomes great. Right? So that's how the acharyas say that devotees are great. That is how we should also think, right? I was listening to this discussion between humility and low self-esteem, and it's a class in itself. But the essential difference is that humility means that one understands that how great is Krishna and how small I am. Right? And low self-esteem means that you are simply saying how small I am. Krishna is out of the picture. So when devotees practice humility, part of the humility is saying how great Krishna is, and because I'm connected to Krishna, anything connected to Krishna is great. Because bhakti is connecting us to Krishna, bhakti is great.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we won't start chapter 1, but we have a few minutes. If yeah, please go ahead, Padmaninath.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Prabhu, I was talking to one of the devotees a few days back, and they were just telling me about, um, uh, their spiritual master and how people in India have to wait for so many years to get initiated, and they got initiated within a span of 2 years. And they were just, telling me about how fortunate they feel they got it within a shorter time. So when we were having this discussion about intent and mercy, I was thinking on the lines of, so how do we understand when devotees who are trying to sincerely practice and seek the mercy of Guru for more number of years? So I'm just trying to understand.
So there are two ways to understand this. One is that the initiation of the devotee begins when he starts following the orders of the spiritual master. Right. So sometimes we say that I got initiated in 6 months or 1 year. Sometimes you hear Prabhupada disciples, you ask them, are you a Prabhupada disciple? And they will say, I'm still trying to be a Prabhupada disciple, which means that they're still trying to follow the instructions of the spiritual master. So initiation is more of a formal ceremony. In itself, it does not indicate that one has made advancement, or the absence of it does not mean that one has not made advancement. As long as a person is following the instructions of the Guru, taking shelter of a Guru and following instructions, person is executing devotional service. That's one part of the answer. The second is, in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, there is a verse that says that even the demigods aspire to take birth on the Earth's planet because the opportunities to execute bhakti are more abundant over there. Now, in a way, a lot of the residents of the Earth planet are aspiring to go to the heavenly planets, and here it says exactly the opposite, but the context is different. The heavenly planets are more advanced spiritually, materially, could be spiritually, but the opportunities to make spiritual advancements are more. So he said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu makes this point that one is very fortunate to have taken birth in this human form. He says Bharat Desh also. So one can understand this also as a result of past activities, that if one does consider initiation to be a strong impetus in one's bhakti, then the fact that they're here in the US and they're able to get quicker initiation, it just indicates that they have performed more either Sukriti or Bhakti to get them better qualified there. Like one of the big differences is that at least in the US, I'm not sure the other Western world, opportunities for service are much easily available. And especially in India, it's very, very difficult to get service in the temple, right? And how do you understand that distinction? It's good fortune. By some good fortune, we are in a situation where that opportunity presents itself. Right? Can understand the stories. Okay, so we'll take the last question. Sharadya Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji, for the nice class. Prabhuji, I wanted to ask that we learned that devotion means it is related to Krishna, and Krishna means Krishna and everything related to Krishna. And Prabhuji, but it's a generic question because I wanted to ask, like in other faiths, people have devotion to the supreme person or the all-powerful Lord or the supreme Father, but they are missing the Krishna factor or the Krishna concept, and sometimes they are very much situated. So in that situation, is that devotion real, or is it because it's missing the Krishna, the direct Krishna path, but it's indirectly they are engaging in Krishna's devotion?
So I think there are 2 points that I can make in this. One is a quote by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, where he makes this point that I think he's glorifying those who follow Christianity or other religion. I think more generally, he says that something to the effect that all glories to these people who are worshipping Krishna in a different form. Right? So he's recognizing them as devotees. And Prabhupada would make this point that the followers of all bona fide religions are making spiritual advancement as long as they're following what the religion tells them. And so this used to be one of his discussion with the leaders of the faith. Like he would talk with Christian priests, and he would say that, Lord Jesus has given you the teachings. Are you following it? And they would say yes. And then he would inevitably at some point say that thou shalt not kill. Why are you eating animals? That means you're not following. But the point he would make is that bona fide religion, one makes spiritual advancements as long as they're following it, which applies equally to those who are following within India or Hindu religion. As long as they're following the scriptures, as long as they're following the established by the Vedas and the Gurus, they're making spiritual advancements. Otherwise, It is just mental speculation. Now, what about the destination? The destination ultimately is based on the form of the Lord that they are worshipping. If somebody is worshipping Krishna in the impersonal form, that's their destination, right? So if somebody is following the Islamic religion perfectly, then they worship the Lord as impersonal form. That's what their destination is. Within Hinduism, those who are Brahmavadis and they worship the Krishna's Brahman form, that's their destination. So the destination depends on the way that you engage in your spiritual practices.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. But Prabhuji, sometimes while following their scriptures perfectly, sometimes they have negative emotions or negative feelings towards Krishna or their adversaries, but they're following their path perfectly, but then they have negative things to say about other faith. Or then how is that? Is that still good, or Krishna doesn't like that?
So it's a symptom of being a neophyte, right? So this notion of saying that my God can beat your God, that's a notion of being neophyte. Who was saying, Prajnai Prabhu was saying, neophyte means that they always fight. And it's obviously not pleasing either to Krishna or to whoever they're worshipping. Does it cover the bhakti? Yes, it does. Does it negate the bhakti? Of course not. It's not impinging on the primary characteristics of devotion, but it is contaminating it, right? Which is equally applicable to Vaishnavas also. Which is why the Vaishnavacharyas, while they say that we should be focused in our own sadhana, in our own conception, we should not get into this tendency of belittling other religions. And just like it is harmful for them, it's harmful for us also. Okay, thank you
Yes,
very much.
Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for all the wonderful questions. We'll start with chapter 1 next week. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंतकोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय। शिला प्रभुपाद की जय। जय गौर प्रेमानंद।
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank
Hare
you, Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.